Hey everyone, this is Lucid. We're going to be doing the national overview for Late Age Mictlan. And Late Age Mictlan, if you recall, is a blood nation, very similar to Early Age Mictlan, whereas many of the nations, kind of one of the themes is in the Early Age you have very deep magic path access and light armor, and you have a lot of like mythical giants and things like that. In the later ages, you have very shallow magic access, but wider, right? So you have more cross paths, but less. The mages in general are probably less powerful in terms of their, like what's the maximum amount of magic they have in any given school. But your troops in general are significantly better. They have better armor and better weapons. As society has progressed, it's gotten less mythical and more kind of industrious. Mictlan is a bit different in this regard. Basically, it's the same as it was in Early Age. With some exceptions, your mages here, right, they're holy too. You also have access to the Toad people, or the Atlanteans, I guess, or yeah, some of the Atlantean mages. You have this person who's your only holy 3, so you'll be relying on these to claim thrones, etc. The King of Rain. And we'll just go through them in order, but that's kind of the difference up here. And then down here in terms of the troops, you have basically the Early Age Mictlan roster. There's probably some exceptions. I don't play Mictlan enough to like just look at this and say what the few differences are. Except, of course, you have access to the Rain Warrior, who's a sacred basically from mid-age. So in that sense, it's nice because you have the ability to go underwater and do underwater raiding and things like that. But you do suffer in general from the fact that you're basically an early age nation fighting late age troops, and late age troops in general are better. So that's something we're going to have to kind of deal with, and we'll see how well we deal with it. But we'll go through the units. So we're going to start with the commanders. You have a scout, not much to talk about, mountain and forest survival. You have the tribal king, which are pretty interesting because they can levy slave warriors, and basically that's these guys. They have pretty crap stats, not very good morale, and yeah, the only nice thing about them is they're free. They have very little upkeep. When you levy them, you give up a little bit of population, but if you have growth scales, you end up keeping your population will still grow if you have one of these guys capturing slaves. I don't know how many of these you would need to like totally neutralize growth scales. Of course, that would also depend on your province size, but certainly in your cap you can capture slaves, and it will not reduce your population turn to turn. I mean, it would reduce it from what it would have been, but overall every turn it will go up. Now, that being said, it also doesn't increase on rest, so it's not like blood hunting. So you're not going to have big penalties for doing it in your cap. These troops are kind of shit. They're kind of a liability on the battlefield, but they're good at patrolling, and they can have some tactical uses on the battlefield for eating up lance charges and things like that. Additionally, they're going to siege down things okay, and they're going to defend walls okay, so they can be used for those purposes. And if you watch my YouTube channel, you know I like chaff, so this is a plus. I haven't really decided to turn on and I may try it. We may go chaff extraordinaire, but I mean, they're a liability, so you don't want to use them in combat, but you can use them to keep up fort walls and things like that. Now, there's a bunch of other units we get. We're going to go through those in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so that's the tribal king. He gets to basically capture slaves. You have the Mictlan priest, which is pretty cheap. 65 gold for a sacred blood 1 dude, with a 10% chance of getting one of these paths. These guys are pretty nice when you get them, because they're basically super cheap versions of things that you would otherwise have to pay a lot of money for. So like the fire blood one, you can do useful things like get some of your blood summons with them, and I think there's a few other summons you can get with the other ones. But like the nature ones, you can forge jade knives. Basically, when you do get a random, you can usually do almost all the things that this guy is going to do, but you can do it cheaper than you would have been able to do. Right, you can basically free up some of your better mages every time you get a random one of these. If you take magic scales, these guys are going to be really efficient researchers. If you take drain scales, these guys are going to suck at researching, and you're just going to use them as blood hunters. So there's that. We have the Nahuli, who is a pretty cool dude. Actually, I should recruit one. We're going to recruit one real quick. Where are you? They changed into turkeys. And it was really funny when Daz was asking us kind of what, if we had any input on our illustrations he was drawing. I was like, yeah, can I get a blood, like a demonically possessed turkey? And it was based off this unit. And of course they don't have blood access, but whatever, we can empower in blood. And that's going to be like a mini goal. I'm not going to like sacrifice the game to create, you know, a blood empowered turkey. But it's definitely a sub goal. So anyway, there will be at least one blood empowered turkey if I have the luxury of doing it. But these guys are actually kind of cool. They have a mesmerize attack, which will basically charm the enemy. I think if you're playing Conquest of Elysium, which is another game by Illwinter, you can use a unit kind of like this. I forget the details around it, but you can basically use it as in your expansion army and like recruit a huge amount of chaff just by killing everything by bringing them onto your side. I don't think that's a tactic that works here, but could be maybe useful against elites. And then when these guys die, they'll probably turn into their human form. Anyway, kind of cool. The other cool thing about them is they can fly. So you actually have, these guys are pretty long range. And in theory, right, we could actually do some kind of cool stuff. Like we could give them swarm. Actually, let's just do this and we'll fly into a random province. I have no idea what's there. I'm just going to get a few of these and we'll test this out. Okay, so let's test this out. So we're going to get a few of these. I think one of my guys might die. I have the debug mod on, and so like the AI is casting crazy shit. Like Wrath of God. Which I could dispel, to be honest. Okay, so we're going to try this. We're going to just change these all into birds, and then we're going to have them jump over here. And then we'll just have them fire off a bunch of swarms. Hal is a lot of fatigue. I don't think we can pull off Hal, unfortunately. That would be kind of funny. But this kind of detail does not normally go into a... And I know I could do the hotkeys here, but I'm being too lazy to be efficient. Anyway, we'll see if this works. I'll just put them at the back. But, and this is bigger than most PD would be. But anyway, gives you a sense of the kind of shenanigans you could do with turkeys. There they go. Yeah, there you go. For the low, low price of 6 nature gems. Okay, Turkey Raiders. Don't say it cannot be done. There it is. So anyway, you can do ridiculous shenanigans that you should never be able to do. Like stuff like that. So, those are the turkeys. Those are our Nahule, or however you say it. Then we get the Priest King. So, okay, we haven't been talking about leadership. These guys are 80, so that's good enough for your normal troop needs with 1 Taskmaster. Nice. These guys are 10, these guys are 10. Matt moved 2, these guys are all 10, 16. 10, holy shit, that's slow. 16, 16, these guys are 16. So your mages are a little faster. 120 leadership here, Priest King, good leader. The Moon Priest and the Sun Priest, though, they don't have great leadership. So this is like your best leader. He's also Taskmaster 1, which is nice. Okay, so let's talk about this guy. So, Nature Blood Dude, there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with Nature Blood, like Rain of Toads. you could forge the chest piece Twisting Thorns or whatever it's called that boosts your nature and blood by 1. And yeah, you can also get nature into communions with this guy, which opens up all sorts of cool stuff. So kind of cool to have around. And then basically Astral Blood, you can do cool stuff like Send Horror, which is kind of the trademark. The horror stuff is kind of the trademark of Astral Blood. But also this just opens up Astral to you, so you can do communions. These guys are cap only, so you don't really have an efficient way to do communions, except with your Mictlan priests, which, isn't really that bad. It's kind of the newer of a player I was, the less likely I wanted to do blood communions, and they're kind of a pain in the ass, because you have to spend blood slaves just to do them. But for important battles, they're totally worth it. So this is an efficient way to use Mictlan priests. You can bring them in as slaves to your communion, and yeah. Astral's great to have on it because you can drop, Power of the Spheres, which applies to slaves, and then also Twist Fate and Luck, which will make your slaves survive random stuff better. But yeah, basically the main purpose for these would be Astral Access as a nation. They can do Mind Hunt, and then they can, most importantly probably for you, do Send Lesser Horror. These guys, the Sun Priests, Fire and Blood, right? So they're going to be able to get a lot of your really good summons. And you have Slingers and things too, which depending on who you're fighting, almost everybody has some kind of ranged weapon, like either a Javelin or a Sling. Except for your Sacreds, they don't have it, but all your normal troops do. And so your PD will. So dropping Flaming Arrows can be good, depends who you're fighting. You can also do Fire Elementals and stuff like that with this guy. So anyway, there's options there. Whoops. These guys, right, map move 14, so a little slower. They have water access. I think... Okay, wait, you also get some stuff underwater. Let's... 1 second, we're going to engineer this real quick. Let's give him, some gear. And we will send him underwater. And we're going to make him a cool weapon. Oh, he needs water. Is he already water breathing? No, he's not. Okay, we probably need to give him... Okay, we're going to empower him in Earth too, so he can do this, and then we're going to give him just some water breathing armor. Okay. So he's going to come down this way. And let's make sure we give him his thing, so he can now go underwater. And we'll just give him some basic script that will allow him to chew through indies, like... we'll give him Iron Skin, and then Temper Flash, and then or Summon Earth Power first, then Iron Skin, and then Temper Flesh, and then Personal Regeneration, and then we'll have him attack. Okay. And we'll give him some Earth Gems and put him on Conservative Gem usage, and then that will get him into the water. And we'll get to see at least if we summon anything. I know we can build forts underwater. I kind of forget, though. Oh, shit. These are Tritons. They may kill him. Okay, we kill him. And I'm just going to zap forward here a second, because you do get underwater recruits, and you can build forts underwater, which allows you to take a pretty strong presence. And I think in this game, there's not going to be a ton of aquatic nations, so there's a good chance I will take control over the underwater lake system, or the lake system. So, okay, we've got this. Let's build a lab and a temple. Actually, I don't think I really need that to show you what we can build. Okay, so here you can see we get different units. We get the Lord of the Deep, who's a priest. Which, depending on the bless you take, these guys could be kind of thuggy, especially with a couple items. You get this guy who is Nature 2 mage, and significantly less HP than the priest. This guy could also be kind of thuggy too. But these guys, water mages are so strong underwater. Basically, summon water elementals. You can totally win battles just on that spell. Yeah. So anyway, if you can get a foothold underwater and get a big fort, and you start cranking these guys out, and especially if there's no other underwater nation, it is very easy with LA Mictlan to take over the water system. The troops you get, so these are the default from that province. These are the troops you get in your forts. You get these guys, which, they're not great, but the guys you're going to fight against underwater aren't great either. They're amphibians too, so you can take them on land, and, yeah, I mean, they have a shield. Hey. And then these guys are a little better. Their protection isn't great, but they have a fair amount of HP, and their attacks hurt for a good bit. So, in terms of cost, though, 25 gold and 10 gold, I would probably take these guys. They're going to do way more damage per tile against most units than this guy, but they'll have higher attrition. So I don't know. It's a bit of a grab bag. If you have a lot of mage support and you just want people to like not die and hold the line, you can get these guys and then put water elementals going in with them. But anyway, this is the underwater roster. So anyway, we've covered that now. But even just being able to build forts underwater is kind of a big deal. The other thing is, okay, I'm doing these like way out of order, so hopefully that's keeping you very engaged. So I've covered these units. I haven't talked about our normal units. We've talked about all the underwater stuff. We're going to go through and talk about this, then I'm going to go back out and we're going to talk about your forts, because they're always a little weird as Mictlan. Okay, so we have warriors, and they basically have slings, and they're cheap. These slings are not bad if you can give them flaming arrows, but aside from that, they're pretty horrible. Yeah. You can also buff strength, like especially late game, but late game archery kind of sucks anyway. You have these guys. These guys are kind of not bad. It depends who you're fighting against. Versus low protection dudes, where the sling might be helpful. These guys are probably not horrible for expansion if you're going for like a scales thing. But the thing is, all these units are going to be considered expensive if you invest in a good bless, because your scales are going to be so bad and your sacreds are going to be so good that, anyway, these are effectively expensive. But yeah, they have slings. If you go scales, you might consider doing expansion with these guys. I could totally see that working. Okay, I'm not totally sure the difference between these guys. These guys are protection 9. These are protection 9. What the hell is the difference here? This one costs a few more resources. I wonder if it has a better shield. Hide shield, scale mail curious, reinforced leather cap. Okay, this one has a better hat. It's got this hat, which is 9, versus this hat, which is 7. And a spear for 13, and a javelin. Oh, this also has a javelin instead of a sling, which depends. If you have flaming arrows and a strength buff on these guys, these javelins are going to hurt. They're going to hurt a lot. So if you're going scales, you would probably want to use these guys for like mid-game battles. And these guys masked with like mass protection on them and flaming arrows and a strength buff, which you don't have great access to earth, so you'd have to get it through blood, which it's really high in blood. It's like blood 8, so it's not really a mid-game thing. But yeah, that could work. So anyway, those are the warriors. Then you have the feathered warriors, which are basically standard carriers. Otherwise, they're the same. They're just expensive versions of the other troop. They have a mace instead of a spear, but it's not really a big deal. Then we have the jaguar warriors. These are recruit anywhere sacreds, meaning you can recruit them in a fort. These are the recruit anywhere sacreds you get in early age Mictlan. In middle age Mictlan, you recruit the birds anywhere, I think. But yeah. So these guys are pretty... I don't think they're much changed at all from early age. They hit pretty hard when they go to a jaguar form. They have 2 claws and a bite, if I recall. We can certainly recruit them real quick and double check that. So you can see I don't play them much. I'm going to test them a good bit before I actually do the pretender design and I put that up. But I fought against them plenty enough. We'll just send these guys in and we'll watch them die. And that should be fine. And we will see their second form. So the way it works is they run into battle. and you've probably seen this, but they have a shape change effect. So they're going to run in. Okay, they get... Once they take enough damage for their human form to die, they switch to their were-jaguar form, which they're not normally ethereal, they just had ethereal cast on them, but they've got 3 attacks, yeah, the bite and then 2 claws that are pretty good. Their stat line's fine, not very high protection, but if you take certain buffs, this can be a pretty lethal form, but again, they die. But they're Recruit Anywhere Sacred, so you don't necessarily have to keep them around. And they're not very expensive. They're 26 gold. And the amount of death and kind of mayhem these guys can inflict for 26 gold is quite surprising. So they're very killy, but they're also very easy to be killed. They get just destroyed by archer fire and things like that. So especially, and we're playing in a short game where not a ton of magic is going to come online, we're not really going to leave the Age of Archery. Right, the Age of Archery is going to reign kind of for the whole period of this Let's Play. So that will also kind of inform the Bless. I think if we go like pure offense, it would be a little tough because these guys are going to get murdered by arrows. So anyway, that's something to think about. We do have the Eagle Warriors who will be able to jump in and hit the back lines. They're flyers when blessed. You don't see flying here, but as soon as they get blessed, they gain the ability to fly. So they also don't have strategic flying map move. Like they can't fly from here to here, plus you don't have any flying leaders, or at least not by recruiting them. So these guys also benefit very well from like a very killy bless because they've got 2 attacks. And because they can jump in and hit the back line, or jump in and hit thugs or super combatants or mages or whatever. So anyway, they're a tactical thing here because if I recall, and I could be wrong, we'll go ahead and we're building a palisade here. We'll go ahead and put a lab up. We'll just let this build, make sure I don't give out any misinformation. I think we'll put, we'll take a priest over here too. Oh God, guys, please don't attack me. I'm trying to be peaceful. I've got 1,000,000 PD. Just bugger off. Okay, this is how, if you have cheat mode on, you keep the AI from attacking you. So here we go. We're gonna make a temple. Oh wait, we can't make a temple, not with these guys. Okay, so we can see who our Recruit Anywhere mages are. That's the other thing about this nation. You don't really have a lot of Recruit Anywhere mages. So kind of when I was saying if you go scales, these guys are not going to be your researchers. Well, you can get the Natuli too, who are not sacred. Their research is not a ton better, but that difference between 7 and 11 is going to be exaggerated greatly by magic scales. Like if you take Drain 3, this will be 8, and this will be 4, right? So these guys are going to give you twice as much, even though they're about twice the gold. But the thing is you're not just looking about efficiency. You're looking at like how much research points can you generate a turn. If you're generating 4 research points per turn from each fort, like that's nothing. It's nothing. So it's not about like gold per research point. It's also about like how many research points can you generate a turn. And these guys are going to be way too low with if you go drain. So anyway, something to think about. The Natuli are definitely worth considering. They're also much better kind of combat mages. You can do crazy stuff like you saw where I just raided with them. Yeah. So you get to recruit these guys. You only get the Jaguar Warriors in your other forts. These Eagle Warriors are cap only, as I thought. And then finally, we get these guys who are also cap only, the Rain Warriors. You do not get to recruit them underwater, and you do not get to recruit them in your other forts. Yeah, so they are pretty useful if you have a good bless and you want to go underwater. They have a Bronze Glaive, which does a lot of damage, and they have okay armor. They don't have a shield, but these guys are going to be pretty killy underwater, especially if you have a good bless. So, yeah, I think that covers the basic troops. Now we have a lot of summons too, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about them now. So your summons are split between two different magic schools. Some of them are in Conjuration. The ones that are in... Okay, this guy finally declared war on me. You have some that are in Conjuration, and they're going to be all wacky and out of order, but you have Summon Jade Serpent, which... I don't think I cast that, actually. Let's cast that. Did I cast it? Oh, I did. Okay, I thought I cast everything. Okay, so... Here is a Jade Serpent. These guys are amphibious, so they can go underwater. They're sacred, so they can take your bless. They don't really like the same kind of bless a lot of your other troops do. A lot of your other troops like very offensive blesses. And these guys really would like kind of like some kind of cool tanky bless. They're also standards. They have standards, so they will increase the morale of the troop they're in, which is pretty good. It helps with morale checks against repel and things like that. And then it can also kind of just beef up your front line, which otherwise is kind of flimsy. But it's probably not a unit you're going to be recruiting in mass. They're also poison resistant, which is nice. You have these toads, these jaguar toads. These are under nature. Jaguar toads, and then jaguars and monster toads. Those are the ones we're going to look up. So, where are my jaguars? Okay, here are my jaguars. So jaguars, you can see you get in much larger numbers than the other ones, because this is like, I think, one casting. Yeah, if we look at it. Yeah, jaguars, one casting, you get 17 for 25 nature gems. Monster toads, you get 1 for 2. And then... where the hell is the... Oh, the jaguar toad, you get 1 for 1. So we'll take a look at them. This is the jaguar toad, so it's a kind of small dude. It's got poisonous skin, so it will poison people that attack it. It has claws, which are pretty weak, and then it can spit poison, which, that's kind of cool. Not terribly great. It's trample, but only size 3, so it will try to trample over humans, but not do a great job at it. And it doesn't have a lot of HP, protection, or defense, so it will die very quickly, and you can't script it. So not a great unit in my opinion, but it's sacred and it's cheap. It's only 1 nature gem, so you can imagine certain situations where you might want to make it. This is a monster toad. It's 2 nature gems for one of these, and it's much better, 57 HP. It emits a poison cloud, so it will poison anyone near it. So this is also worth considering. If you want to mix this into your bless, you definitely want to take poison resistance. You don't, as a nation, have good access to foul vapors, I don't believe. So that kind of negates some of the reason you might want to take a poison resistance bless. But, just throwing these into your front line might work. But if you think about it, poison is like a kill over time type of thing. And in general, your nation is a kill things very quickly because we're very fragile ourselves. So in some ways, it's kind of anti-synergistic. And then a lot of the blesses you would want to take for your normal troops, you probably don't want to take for these guys. That said, you can try to make your normal troops not very... like you could give them awe, which would make them much less vulnerable in melee combat. And then that would make these guys a little better. And, you could get... These guys are also vulnerable to arrows, so you could give them, air shield, and it would make your other guys good. But I don't know if I think that's the right way to go. Next we have Ocelotls, which are... we're now into the blood summons, and we'll come back up and cover some of the other ones. I'm just going kind of in whatever order I feel like. These guys are kind of... They're some of the most efficient blood summons in the game in terms of... they're sacred, right? And they're very synergistic with the bless you kind of want to take on your other troops. Like, they're very killy, and so they like offensive blesses. They're not supposed to tank anything. They're supposed to get in there and kill stuff. And then if they don't die, great. So they're demons, so that means they can get additional strength from Bloodlust, which is available very early in the game. So that's going to give them +4 strength, which will make these things do a ton of damage. In addition, they're flying, so they can attack rear. At the beginning of the game, you don't get them very quickly. I think this is like a Blood 3. You get Bind Jaguar Fiends, which you get 3 for 13. So you can get that pretty quick in the game. And that's about the same time. I don't know the exact path, and they're all deleted here in the kind of cheat mode of the game. But where the hell is it? Where's Bloodlust? Some of you probably see it. I'm just like staring at it and don't see it. Okay, here's Bloodlust. You get this pretty early. I think it's Blood 3, maybe Blood 4. But yeah, you basically spend a Blood Slave. Everybody gets 4 strength. That's a demon. So anyway, these are the demons that you get. And it makes these guys very killy. So all in all, a good thing. Let's go back to Conjuration real quick. So we've talked about the Jade Serpent. We'll talk about the Toelock now, or however you say it. That's this guy. There's different varieties. Each Toelock, I think, has fire and blood, but then maybe this one's not the same. I know they all have blood, but they all have a different major path. So this is the Toelock of the South. There's also a Toelock of the North. I think this guy can actually summon them, so we'll just get another one and just... There's not enough gems! Let's see if this fixes it. We'll see which one of the paths is the same. So, okay. Yeah, so they all kind of get jumbled up. This one is Water 4, Nature 2, Blood 3, and then this one's Fire, Water, Blood. Anyway, you can get some cool cross paths like Fire. Water is a really good cross path. It gives you access to the Staff of Elemental Mastery, and then it also allows you to cast all the acid spells, and those are really, really good. It's probably worth going through and thinking about what each of these can do. It's going to be available for this game probably a little late. I think it's like Conjuration 7 or 8 they become available. But anyway, they're kind of useful for Magic Diversity, and to cast it, you only need access to water, which, if you think about it, you can get just off of this guy, right? You already have it. So this guy, he can already get Water 4, so they can cast it without even building items, so it's not something you need to think about for Pretender design. Then coming back to nature, we've talked about all of these. Astral, I know I'm forgetting one. Oh, maybe they're blood. Yeah, they're blood. Okay, this is the one I was thinking of. I forgot it was a blood summon. The Tzitzimitzel, whatever you call it. That is this guy. So this is a blood summon. It's a demon. And it is pretty cool. It has a Stellar Bolt, so this is an armor negating attack. In some ways you can think of this as similar to the... these guys are very similar to Storm Demons. They are flying, they're sacred, so that's a difference from a Storm Demon, and they have these things, Stellar Bolts, which they have 10, which is I think about the same Storm Demons get. They have very long range, they're armor negating, though there's an MR check for half damage, and yeah, pretty damn awesome. I think they're pretty expensive though. Let's go check out the cost though. Yeah, they're 10 slaves for one of them. If we go look at the Storm Demon, and this actually is worth looking at comparing for cost. Some of these spells people don't actually take the time, like it's just not even worth a mage turn to cast. In general, the feeling is that this is kind of on the edge. It's probably worth the Blood Slaves, but it's maybe not worth the mage turn. But anyway, 7 Blood Slaves for a Storm Demon, and so you can see it's a little bit more for this guy, 10, but still just a mage turn. Though it is a cap-only mage turn. But these guys are pretty damn solid. They do kind of synergize with your Bless, like they've got a tail and they've got 2 really good attacks, and yeah, and they have this. So I think this also will take buffs from your strength. So you see how this is 18 damage, or you have 18 strength and you do 18 damage? Well, that's because this attack is 0 damage, so it gets buffed from your strength. So anything you take on your Bless that adds to strength is also going to affect these guys. And there may be certain other types of things that you could put on your Bless that would help with this particular part. But this is pretty good. I don't actually have the path that it's available at right here, but I don't think it's terribly high. It's not like Blood 1 or 2, but it's probably like beneath Blood 6 or below, I would guess. Anyway, you don't have to guess. You can just look at it yourself in the game. But Anyway, it's a pretty good summon, though it's very mage turn expensive. And if you think about it, the game's not going to go that long. So if I think I'm going to use it, what you end up having to do is you have to kind of have your blood economy, prepare a lot of these guys, and then kind of execute that plan and start summoning them like crazy. Which is something I totally could do, because this is not going to be a super late game type of thing. But then again, it's a question, like for 13 Blood Slaves, you get 3 of these guys. And would you rather have 3 of the Jaguar Fiends, or would you rather have, basically one of those? And the answer is not exactly obvious. I mean, what would you want? Would you want 3 of these who have 33 HP and then 3 attacks, and they're flying, and they're demons, so they can take a benefit of these are demons too. So they can take a benefit of Bloodlust. Like, so do you want these guys, or do you want these, which are, they have more HP from defense. They had 14 and 14. These guys are 14 and 12, so these guys have a little more defense. Their protection is 6. These guys' protection is 6. Yeah, I think the only reason you would want them is if you want this ranged artillery, or you want the poison. So these are probably... The other thing is, this is not lightning damage, right? So when you take a storm demon, you're going to be doing lightning damage. So if they have, a lot of shock resistance, they can block it. This is basically unblockable damage, right? So the way I would probably look at these is I would rather have the Ocelots, unless I want this to take out super elite troops who have a ton of armor. Because this is just going to ignore any armor they have. It'll do half damage, sure, if they have high MR, but whatever. It's half damage that is then going to go directly to HP. It's not going to do any checks against protection. So these, I think, are going to be very good at taking down very elite type, like thugs, super combatants. Otherwise, I think you're better off with the Aussies. But the Aussies are going to be pretty good at killing them too. So it would have to be... I think in general, you're probably going to want to make these guys. But I could totally see spending mage turns to make them. So anyway, that is... I think that's most of the unit summons. We now just have a few more things to talk about. One is the Kutel, which you only need Nature 1, Astral 1 to summon, and then you get this guy who is Nature 3, Astral 3. So this is your highest Astral and your highest Nature Mage. So these will be your highest Astral and Nature Mages, and they also are Holy too. So this isn't enough to fly around and grab thrones, but it is enough to lead some of your flyers around and potentially kill dudes. The only thing is they don't have undead leadership, but you can fix that with a few items. Though you're not going to get great undead leadership. The other thing is, since your other nature mages can enter into communions, they're, nature astral already. Having this nature 3 isn't a huge deal, but it is nice. You can do some turn 1 kind of big buffs if you want to with them. All in all, it's kind of a nice unit. I don't think it dramatically changes the flavor of the nation in terms of the things it can do. But anyway, kind of cool. We do get these 2 guys too. We get the Tehulapuchi, or however you say it. And this is an assassin. Also pretty solid research. And it's a freaking awesome assassin. Let's talk about all the things it can do. One is it's a shape changer, so it starts off as a dog. We'll go ahead and do that. By the way, it keeps its magic pass and it will revert to its other form, I believe, if it gets damaged, though we can test that out. And let's just show you what it can do, right? Because talking about it is, it's all words. It's just words. So we're going to come up here. And we're going to change shape. Okay, you can't assassinate while in wolf form. And then we're going to assassinate enemy commander. And we're just going to stand here and we're going to cast Leech. And then we're going to do that twice. And let's see what happens. So this is one way to just murder somebody. And this is how it works. The only thing is, you can see I only had 1 slave in battle, and your slaves aren't like guaranteed to show up with you. So that is a bit unfortunate, so it's not quite as reliable. The other way to do it, of course, is you can do with no items. You can just summon skeletons, and if they have unguarded commanders, that'll kill most of them. If they have guarded commanders, you can cast Swarm twice, and that will kill the guards and the commander most of the time. And then if they have elite thugs that maybe you're worried you can't snipe that way, you just snipe them with Leech. So you have all the best assassin paths. And you don't even really need to put items on them. They're not terribly expensive. Let's go check out the cost. 42 slaves, not bad at all. I think that is an extreme value. They can research and assassinate and do all the things. I mean, it's almost hard. With Mictlan, you have so many good things in blood, it's almost hard to decide, like, what do you actually get. So... probably good to mix it up, right? Because how are they going to counter your assassin army when they're also worried about your Ocelot army? Yeah. Let's go talk about the next one. The next one we have is this one, the Sibieto. And these guys are kind of interesting. They're Reanimator Priests, whereas I don't believe these guys are. Yeah, no. So these guys are Reanimator Priests, so if you wanted to get into the Skelly Spam business, you can totally do it. You probably want to do it with Soulless because you're going to be blood hunting, which means usually as a side effect of blood hunting and patrolling, you generate corpses. You can turn these into Soulless, and yeah, these guys will do that pretty efficiently. So you can use these to make an undead army. They're also definitely thuggable, right? They're ethereal to start with. They have fear. They have death and blood, which are not great, but they also have, they're holy, so they'll take your bless, though your bless tends to be killy, not thuggy. Yeah. So they can enter into communions and do Skelly Spam. They can enter into communions and do Soul Vortex and things like that onto your communion slaves and invulnerability. Yeah, I think we'll check out this guy. They're cheaper, right? So they're 36. And in terms of research, you get 12 versus the 16 of this one. So in general, I kind of prefer the other ones. But these are map move 22, which means you can probably dive provinces with these guys. Like, I bet you we can go up here. No, can we not? How far is it? Okay, that's 29. Oh, well, it's over a forest, then it's into a wasteland. But we could move here, right, with these flyers. So even though she's not a flyer, right, she can take these flyers and dive with them. And because she's holy, she could bless them. So that is definitely a potential use. And that is something you would not be able to do with this one. And it's not something you would be able to do, because if you look at it, it's 24 to this. That's not something you'll be able to do with any of your other normal mages. So you can kind of use this one like a flying dude to move people around. And then you can reanimate with them. I don't think you really need a lot of undead chaff as this nation. You know, you can get slaves, which in some ways are more versatile, though they have morale issues. Yeah. Not sure how I think these have situational uses, but I think this is... these other ones, the assassins, are just ridiculous. Yeah, they're super strong. And I think we're almost done. We have one unit left, which is the Ananqui, which, if you've played Zabalba EA, you get to recruit these. I think it's a slightly different version, like maybe it's Holy 2, I can't remember. But yeah, death, nature, blood, they can summon... Okay, so you can do some kind of super combatant-y things with them, like with death, you can do invulnerability, soul vortex, nature, you can do regeneration, elemental fortitude. They don't really have stats to be a super combatant, but I've done it. Importantly, they free spawn beast bats, which are these guys. And they are pretty cool. They're demons, so they take bloodlust. They're not very killy, but they're killy in the sense that they have an okay attack. They're demons, so they can take bloodlust, and they're flying, so they can attack rear. So all in all, not bad for a free spawn. They're one of the very few free spawn sacred units in the game. The only problem is I believe these guys are pretty high in blood, and the Ananqui are very expensive to summon. They're 101. So you have to kind of build the case for what you can do with one of these guys and the beast bats they're going to summon that you can't do with something else. And that's a tough case to build, in my opinion. Like, I would rather have 3 assassins, or what's not really 3, it's 2.5 assassins, than one of these guys in many situations, but not in all. Like, if you want to Skeleспam, or if you want to add that to one of your fights, these guys are going to do it as well as anybody. Yeah. And, they can show up anywhere. I don't see a huge use for that, but I might have to think about it more. Anyway, these are some of the units you get. So, zooming out, again, to kind of give final thoughts on the nation, you are a nation that has basically recruit anywhere sacreds, which is very rare, and you get summon sacreds, which is also somewhat rare. So there's a lot of reason you would want to take a good bless. The bless that you usually want to take is going to exaggerate the strengths of your sacreds, which is having lots of attacks. Though you may want to be careful about totally ignoring the defensive side of the equation. There's not a huge amount of synergy between the types of blesses you would want to take in all of your sacreds. Like, these guys want definitely a defensive bless, whereas a lot of your other units want a very offensive bless. Like, these guys would want it too. And if you take a defensive bless, you're not going to like double down on protection or even defense, right? You would want something else like, ethereal or awe or something like that, or luck. So anyway, I'm going to be thinking about what I'm going to do for my pretender design. I've already got a few that I've thought of. I'm going to test them out, see which ones seem to work well for the early game and which ones I think will be fun in the mid game against the players, and then, very importantly, which will do well against the horrors, which will come at the end of the game. So, I hope you try out Mictlan in one of the ages, and I hope you enjoy watching the series, and I also hope I don't get my ass kicked. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching. See you next time.